So I didn't notice it at first, but when I went back and rewatched this play from week 3 versus the Titans during Justin Jefferson's exceptional breakout performance, Kirk Cousins validated all of the things that I previously thought about him ever since he came to Minnesota on that $84 million guaranteed contract. He's not a leader. He doesn't have it. Instead of celebrating with his teammates on this marvelous play, he just walks off the field. He's not interested. He doesn't want to celebrate with CJ Ham, Irv Smith, and Dalvin Cook down there in the end zone, dancing all happy. He just decides it's a business. It's a job to him. He's not a leader, and he's never going to lead this team to a Super Bowl.
That clip right there is a prime example of what I have been harping on for 3 years ever since Kirk Cousins came to Minnesota. The 84 million guaranteed, the $84 million guaranteed contract was a mistake in 2018. The extension that he got in March was a mistake as well, and we are now stuck with him until 2022 because of the absolute ridiculousness that we would have to pull off in a trade where we would have to somehow Brock Osweiler the situation and find a team stupid enough to take on this guaranteed contract. I believe it's day 3 of the new calendar year for the league in 2021, that he will earn 35 million guaranteed. I believe that's correct. You can double check me. But the contract situation aside, we obviously can't trade him. We obviously can't cut him. It would be $41 million in dead money. I have said previously in videos that I don't believe the salary cap is real. Money is a myth. These whole things are just abstract concepts that the league has created to somehow present this idea of fairness, when in reality, teams around the league are able to manipulate the salary cap in their favor. Just look at what the Chiefs did this offseason, handing out contract after contract after contract, being able to solidify the core of their roster while at the same time giving Patrick Mahomes this huge, huge contract where he's now the highest paid player in the league. And the fact that we're unable to do that and the contracts that we have given out don't seem to really pay dividends, especially this season, leads you to wonder why that they do the things that the way that they do. So I understand from the standpoint that the contract is a difficult part, but we have options. And the option that I would like to consider going forward is benching Kirk Cousins. And it is beyond me why he didn't get benched for the second half of the Falcons game after throwing 3 interceptions and putting his team into a position where they cannot win. In my opinion, he's not a leader. I don't think he can elevate the talent around him. And he's been in the league for 9 years. We've seen his ceiling. We've seen his floor. He's not going to get any better. This is it. He's obviously regressing and at an alarming rate this season. So if we're going to play bad, we might as well just play the worst football possible. Keeping Kirk Cousins in as the starting quarterback is a huge detriment to the idea that we can end this season in a position to draft a quarterback of the future. We haven't taken a quarterback in the first round since Teddy Bridgewater, and the only one prior to that under the Rick Spielman era has been Christian Ponder, who we took 12th overall. I think Christian Ponder probably scared Rick Spielman to death, and he was extraordinarily hesitant to pull the trigger on Teddy Bridgewater later on in his career. Now, the Christian Ponder thing, it was the right call at the right time. He just turned out to be crap. It was the right call at the right time to draft Teddy Bridgewater. The injury thing is just something that you can't avoid, you can't predict. It's not your fault. We need to get over this idea of sunk cost fallacy, because I've heard too many Vikings fans today and last night go on podcasts and radio shows and talk about how drafting a quarterback has never worked out for them. It's never worked out for a lot of teams, but free agency clearly doesn't work for us. We have gone through so many quarterbacks through trades and free agency. None of them stick, and they're all past their prime. Kirk Cousins, we just happened to catch at the end of his peak, and now we're seeing the side effect of him starting to dwindle on a roster where he is no longer apparently welcome because nobody wants anything to do with the guy. If I could sort of explain the most recent precedent we have of the idea of ignoring sunk cost, that would be the Arizona Cardinals. In 2018, they drafted Josh Rosen from UCLA with the 10th overall pick. That's a pretty significant investment. Next season, they change everything over, have a new coach, and he decides to use the number 1 overall pick to draft Kyler Murray, and they ship out Josh Rosen to Miami. They ignore the sunk costs, reinvested in the position, and now they're better off for it. the idea that you should be drafting a quarterback in the first round every single year until you hit is the right move to make. I don't fault any team that reaches for a quarterback in the draft, because if you like the guy enough, go and get him, because he's probably not going to be there later. And if you miss out, you're going to have to hear about it for years to come. I.e., the Bears, who drafted Mitch Trubisky. Yes, at the right time, it was the right call. But at the same time, they passed on Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, and they're still living up that meme to this day. So we are in a position right now where we own the number 2 overall pick according to reverse standings from NFL.com. Playing Kirk Cousins continuing to play Kirk Cousins on this team as a starting quarterback is detrimental to that. He will accidentally find ways to win games. He's good enough to probably win 3 or 4 this season. I think the most that they could probably pull off is 5. The schedule is about to get a little bit easier, at least on paper, after the Green Bay game in Lambeau. We got the Bears, we've got the Lions, we've got the Jaguars, the Cowboys, bad defense. There's another team in there, I forget who it is at this moment, but it's also another porous defense. So we could eventually sneak out a couple of wins and work our way out of the position to land Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, or Trey Lance. Right now, we should embrace the tank if we're going to play as poorly as we did against an 0-5 team, where we lost in our own home stadium, getting blown out by an interim head coach in his first game. We should just put in somebody else and just let it be bad on purpose. So that brings us to Sean Mannion. Now, a lot of Vikings fans have also said, well, you can't bench Kirk Cousins because then you got Sean Mannion. So my response to that is, if Sean Mannion is untrustworthy as everyone says he is, why is he here? What purpose does he serve other than just giving somebody extra help to get ready for game day? So around the league, we have to also get rid of this outdated idea that backup quarterbacks are just there for an emergency. And teams should really start to reinvest in their depth chart, and to not have a plan B at arguably one of the most important positions in the entire game is just downright inexcusable. It's borderline front office malpractice. To sort of go into a season where if your number one option gets in trouble or gets hurt or is lost for the year, oops, oh well, we don't have anybody else, so that's it, season's over. It's detrimental, especially imagine in a scenario where you're 14-0 or 14-2 and you're going into the playoffs and your number one guy goes down. Now you're stuck with Tuiasosopo or somebody ridiculous. So that attitude and mentality about backup quarterbacks needs to change. And the Vikings are the most egregious of offenders of this malpractice in recent memory. So if we don't go to Sean Mannion, what do we have left? Well, we have Jake Browning. We have Nate Stanley, who was a 7th round pick this previous year. And that's it. Jake Browning is an undrafted free agent who has been on the practice squad for a number of years now. Nate Stanley, this is his first year in the pros. It's probably a better idea than to elevate one of these guys to the active roster and get them some reps and see what they can do. If it doesn't work out, put them back. No harm, no foul. The season's lost anyway. You need to start evaluating what you have on this roster now so that we can get ready for the 2021 offseason. Is Nate Stanley, Sean Mannion, or Jake Browning going to come in and make things better? No, they're not. It's about sending a message. I'm completely jokerfied at this point. It's about sending a message, making a statement, make Kirk Cousins watch from the sidelines this, god-awful crap that he's been putting on, and that way he can see how it feels. Clearly no teammate of his or wide receiver of his is responding to anything that he has to offer, and he has no interest in becoming a better quarterback. It's just a bunch of excuses, as it has been since year one. And I will always never forget the comment that he made after the last regular season game in 2018 against the Chicago Bears, where the Bears came in and embarrassed us in our home stadium. It wasn't as bad as the Falcons game, but it was still pretty bad. He says in the post-game press conference, Kirk Cousins does, that this is year one. We have enough time to work on things, like code words and specifics and route changes. Well, buddy, it's 2020. It doesn't look like you've worked on any of that. So clearly a change needs to be made, and Kirk Cousins needs to be sent to the bench. There's also the outside chance that we could bring somebody in that's not currently on the roster. a la like a free agent rookie like Anthony Gordon from Washington State, who has played well in college and I thought could be something in Seattle, but Seattle decided not to keep him. They obviously needed the roster space for other things. Cole McDonald, who got cut by the Titans, the former Hawaii quarterback, maybe he's somebody that's worth bringing in on, like a tryout basis, because teams do tryouts all the time with like kickers and other positions. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that they do that. I don't believe bringing in a veteran on a trade is worth it right now. I think the Vikings should be sellers at the trade deadline. So bringing in a Sam Darnold or a Dwayne Haskins would just be wasting draft capital. And the Josh Freeman game is still so horrible, engraved in everyone's memories, that we don't want to put a veteran in that position where they have to come in, learn a new offense in a matter of 2 weeks, and then put them into a game where they implode and play worse than Kirk Cousins, and then we're back to him again. So going forward, worst case scenario, you play Kirk Cousins for the first half if you can't outright bench him, and then let either Nate Stanley or someone else that you bring in play cleanup for the second half. Because the more games that we win, the more that we are going to be stuck in this merry-go-round of mediocrity with Kirk Cousins at the helm until 2022. We cannot absolutely end this season on a 5-game winning streak and make everybody think, hey, they just need to figure it out. They'll be back next year. Because it hasn't worked out and it's never going to. Kirk Cousins is not a good NFL quarterback. He needs to be benched. That is my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.